So today we're going to be finishing Super Eyepatch Wolf's Riverdale, the show that went completely insane. Last time around, he went into great detail about exactly what that first season was. For anyone who missed it, it was a giant mess. Like, as someone who understands even base level competence in English and writing, base level, not even going into the fact that I have a master's in it, just base level, I'm sitting here going, oh dear God, they actually allowed these words to be written into a script. Oh, secondhand embarrassment for people I've never even met, man. And then the actors had to do it. It's like, no problem to them. They did as good as they could do with something that was absolutely, I was going to say dog shit, but let's be completely fair here. I would give dog shit more credence than this. I don't know why, but I feel I should because it is that bad. This time around, we're going to do the second season on. I don't know what we're getting into here. I'm hoping it's more of the crazy stuff. I really hope it's more of the crazy stuff. Please, if it's not more of the crazy stuff, let me keep that delusion a little longer because that first part was brutal. More importantly, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up and let's get started.
The second season of Riverdale begins.
So we are dropping into the second season. Good.
Something is different.
Oh, he's not dead.
The look of the show
he's just being dragged somewhere bloody.
Surreal and intense. Like, here's a nighttime scene of Pop's Diner from season 1, and here is that same location in season 2.
No, that's actually a really good point. Here, it's just generic lighting. It's like, hey, we're mysterious. We have red lights on the windows. Here, they're actually putting volumetric effects in there by adding, I'm assuming, some kind of smog effect. Unless there's added in post. It might be possible if they put something in there. God rays and all. It really does give it a much more eerie feeling. They definitely hired someone in production who knew what they were doing finally.
And look at how much more awash the characters are in glowing neon.
Yes.
And a lot of the scenes have this same extreme treatment.
Admittedly, even if it's just a after process effect, I love this. This actually looks really cool. If you had showed me this, I'd like, I don't know what's going on, but it looks kind of anime-esque, like very neon. I like it. Yeah, show my bias there, but that's really cool. And I'm focusing on this right now because I remember how much that first season hurt me. Let me have this for a second.
Some are lit with the somber intensity of a French neo-noir. Others...
I have no idea about a French neo-noir, but there is one thing he just showed he didn't comment on.
Some are lit with
slowly
the
twisting camera
of a French
nice.
neo-noir. Others the stabbing neon palette of an 80s slasher movie.
Is that a hook?
Adding to that surreal feel is the set design. The internet and phones exist in Riverdale, but only when they're relevant to the plot.
Oh.
But a lot of the technology is from a period much older than that. You have these...
Okay, one, I actually know people with these cars. They soup the shit out of them to the point where they're probably more expensive than what they originally cost. On the other hand, those microphones...
The technology is from a...
I thought that was a stereo, but no, I think that's a VCR. Oh, wow.
Period much older.
Okay. These mics, still good. These mics, still good. This one? Yeah. This one, that is an old school mic if I've ever seen one. This is old school radio presenter voice with something, insert character name here. Ha. If the phrase coming out next isn't coming to you live from, I would be very surprised. Sorry, it's stupid, but I absolutely love these mics. They're just super nostalgic to me. And I don't know why, because I wasn't alive during that time period. But I look at them, it's like, that's cool. I'm a geek. I realize it.
Older than that, you have these old-timey automobiles, corded telephones, and retro analog televisions.
Oh yeah.
And it all comes together to give the town of Riverdale this surreal feel like it's a place that exists outside time and space.
That actually is really weird because normally when they leave in the technology, but they go for the retro feel, it's done because they forgot and the writers didn't pay attention, which admittedly, hopefully that's the point that they pay attention. They did it on purpose this time around. Super Eyepatch Wolf is going to a lot of mentions of the sound design, the overall lighting, the washed out effects. It seems like he's trying to lead up to saying they made some better choices this time around. And if I'm wrong, I'm just going to be very disappointed.
And this is just the beginning of the bizarreness. Some
That's
characters
weird, but okay.
are completely recast with more extreme personas. Reggie was basically your nice jock boy in season 1, but the new Reggie in season 2 is immediately like, you kids wanna buy some drugs? And as for the main cast, their plotlines begin to barely resemble those of a high school show. Jughead becomes the leader.
No, not even the Jughead. Like, it just randomly there's a... What? Okay, so now it's a roll-on diner and
Our plot lines begin to
randomly
barely
has the
resemble
bloodstains
those
probably
of
just a
the
memory
high
for him.
school show. Jughead becomes the leader of a biker gang
What?
and at one point cuts off a woman's tattoo with a pocket knife. Archie joins the mafia, buys a gun, and this happens.
Who made a mistake?
What the hell, man?
Who made a mistake?
So he actually brought a gun to a knife fight, and he just shot someone.
Who made a mistake?
What the hell, man?
Who made a mistake?
Dude, you just pulled knives on him and you're asking what the hell, man? Yeah, no, this one's on you. He killed a man. Couple men.
Okay, I added in the sound effects.
Seriously? I'm actually hoping they did that. That would have been funny. I mean, compared to context of the original Archie in that first season being such a, hey, this is great, but we have some mystery, but it's mostly just, bad. This would be like, ooh, he's doing something. I can't get that excited, can I? You got my hopes up, Super Eyepatch Wolf.
Myself, but it's still pretty wild. Veronica's dad, Hiram Lodge, is finally introduced, and from this point becomes the show's central villain.
Okay, if that's his opening shot, that's actually great casting. The light behind him, the light's in front, but they don't actually cast any on him, so it's just his face in shadow the entire time. But then again, the person next to them, their face is not in shadow, and objectively, there is literally less light on them. They actually gave him the villainous silhouette in a brightly lit room, but they toned it down so it didn't look bright. But we've seen it in previous shots. This is a very white, very bright room. Any light should fully illuminate it. Oh, it's such an obvious effect, but it's such a good one for just character detail of, yeah, this is the villain. He is definitely the villain, sitting at the head of the table in shadows with the candles, the regular base lights, backlit, and yet somehow never touches his face, and a glass of wine by the bottle of wine, and no one's sitting with him, even though there is someone sharing a glass with him. As far as character design goes, you don't need anything beyond this to know exactly what this guy is. If anything other than the villain or the antagonist was said next, I would not believe it for a second. Thankfully, that's what Super Eyepatch Wolf said, so I'm happy with this. Sorry, this is good set design and just character introductions right here. Just this image is perfect.
Hiram Lodge is finally introduced, and from this point becomes the show's central villain. And
oh yeah,
oh my god, I
billionaire.
love this character. He keeps a giant portrait of himself above his desk. Things get weirdly erotic between him and Archie.
There is nothing soft about me.
When did this come out? This was 2 years ago. I hate to ask, but was this thing a reference? The villainous billionaire who likes to pal around with teenagers. Seems a bit on the Epstein, but I could be mistaken.
Okay, well, I ship it.
Veronica, no! Betty discovers she has a spooky brother who moves into their home, and oh my god, he's a serial killer! Oh no, wait,
Another?
No, that's her half-brother. Her real brother is in the FBI. That's a relief. Oh my god, he's also a serial killer, and he's in love with the first serial killer brother! Oh, well...
Seriously? Two serial killer brothers that are in love with each other and they just both get introduced later on? Well, it's definitely more interesting than everything the previous episode. Or I guess not episode for me. It's episode for me. It's the previous half. Less than half for Super Eyepatch Wolf. Seriously, some of the lines were so bad. Even these obscene jump the shark plot twists seem more interesting.
At least she's still got her dear old dad. Oh no!
He's also a
So
serial
if
killer.
Season 1 of Riverdale is your typical high school drama, Season 2...
Give it a little credit. Typical high school dramas were probably better. That was a bad attempt at a high school drama with people who either have never been in high school because they were homeschooled and forgot that they were schooled at all, or that they were put under such production timelines that they just cranked out whatever they could to satisfy their boss because it's a pile of shit and they know it, but they gotta do it anyways. That last one's way too depressing, so I'm just gonna pretend it was their fault. It's much more palatable.
starts to feel like a strange, feverish crime thriller. And when I started to look into
really? I
why
thought it'd be
there might
sci-fi
be such
mystery.
a massive shift in tone between seasons, what I found was pretty interesting. Here is every writer or writing team who worked on Riverdale Season 1. Here are the writers who stayed on for Season 2, and
Oh, wow. Actually, I'm more surprised that many stayed on. There's a lot of shows that, hell, not even between seasons, between episodes, they'll change out entire staff. Not all of them, but that is a thing that does happen every now and again. Mostly in very episodic shows, though, where they're trying to get multiple ideas out of long-running series. It does happen with some shows. Not all of them, though.
And here are all the new writers that were brought on board for the second season.
So
Having
far it
so
seems
many
like,
new writers
oh,
was always going
it's
to
still
change
going?
the tone of the show, but it may also explain Riverdale's increasingly erratic plot lines. Like, there's this episode where a mysterious illness begins causing simultaneous seizures in the women of Riverdale.
Do I even need to say it? This is definitely someone's fetish. They just managed to sneak into the show. Why do I even have to say that? Oh, dear. I don't even know.
And we spend the entire 42 minutes building to this big dramatic reveal that the town of Riverdale is infected with a deadly disease and will be put under quarantine. Only
I'm pretty sure that's Stephen King's The Dome. Also, considering how many serial killers are in this town, it doesn't need to be that big. I can't speak today. That big of a town. Putting them in a dome might have been a safe option much earlier.
for the next episode to start like this.
It's been 5 weeks since we were cut off from the rest of the world.
Oh.
Quarantine's been lifted.
An entire story arc just gone, with the seizures being
Seriously?
explained away much later as a problem with the town's water supply. And as for why it only affects women, or why it happens simultaneously,
We know. We all know exactly why. Admit it. You can't disagree with me on this one.
that question is literally asked by one character and ignored by another. It's in instances like this that you can feel that same philosophy that resulted in the diner scene from
They're literally
season one.
seeing what interests people and
Create
throwing it at the wall.
big dramatic moments.
One of several times to protect his parents' other childhood home. Do they just have multiple childhood? Actually, considering how this show is, I would assume they actually do have multiple childhood homes.
Fuck everything else.
Yeah.
And if it sounds like I'm criticizing Riverdale, I'm actually not. See, I've seen this kind of storytelling somewhere before.
Really? I'm going to hope you mean the second half of throw everything at the wall to see what hits, as opposed to it's just a mess. Granted, it's just a mess is something you see in a lot of places. Is he going to reference The Simpsons? I don't know why, but that's the first thing that jumps to mind right now. I'm not sure why, and it's actually freaking me out a bit.
During the late 90s, wrestling's
Wrestling?
biggest star was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Because they
He was
tried
angry,
everything
he
to
drank
see what
beer, and
worked.
He was great. And his biggest rival wasn't another wrestler, but Vince McMahon, the real-life owner of the company. This
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about this guy and how actual real-life shit made him literally leave the company and divest, at least of his ownership, but I think he's still massively rich, and I think he might still have controlling share. I'm not entirely sure. Also, did something happen to the company? I thought it rebranded. I don't remember. I could be mistaken about that. I only know about this peripherally because I think some people mentioned that he got busted for some actual crazy-ass shit outside of the show itself.
rivalry taking place during WWE's Attitude Era, a time when wrestling was attempting to appeal to a teenage audience with moments of shocking violence or sexuality or whatever is going on here, and one of the
What?
most memorable stories that came from this was the
Human
introduction of the Higher Power, a mysterious cloaked figure who led a cult of evil wrestlers who reigned all kinds of chaos over the
What?
WWE, like crucifying other wrestlers or kidnapping Vince McMahon's daughter and forcing her to marry an undead wizard, to the point that McMahon and Austin had to set aside their differences and face this mysterious new enemy together. And that's when, on June 7th, 1999, Vince McMahon would
Wasn't the evil wizard just the Undertaker? Oh, yeah.
demand from backstage that the Higher Power finally reveal himself.
I say the evil, demonic SOB show his face to the world now.
Who could it be?
That's so stupid. Okay. Yeah, well, I was wrong about who I thought it was, and considering this guy was actually in charge of the company, is this just megalomaniacal? Or is it acting? Or is that even counted as acting because they are megalomaniacal and they're just being allowed to let it out? I don't know, and I'm kind of terrified to find out.
In a twist that made no sense to anyone except maybe himself,
Yeah.
Vince McMahon was revealed as the higher power. His was just this
Shock value.
moments. But the thing is, people, including myself, remember this really fondly. The Attitude Era was full of big, shocking moments like this, and that is a big part of why it is so fondly remembered by fans, despite the fact that the actual storylines and wrestling were frequently quite bad. And I do think there's something
Why does he randomly have a
compelling
gun?
about the audacity that comes with narratives focused on creating insane moments like this that just aren't possible.
You know what? I just came from his wrestling videos. I wasn't expecting to get more of this, and I'm okay with it, but at the same time, this is over the top to the point where I'm actually thinking his previous things were downplaying just how weird it got. I'd say who thinks of this, but apparently we had an entire list on the screen earlier of all the writers who literally thought of this. Do they just have random shoutouts or cameos about it?
With more technically competent storytelling. It might not always be good or logical or even coherent, but goddamn, it can be entertaining.
Spectacle storytelling,
That is
yeah.
a lot of the appeal of Attitude Era wrestling, and that is also the appeal of Riverdale.
Is
And
just
from this point on,
intentionally jumping the
good
shark.
God, strap yourselves in, because nothing can prepare you for the sheer insanity that is.
Wait, that wasn't the insanity? That was only season 2. Is he jumping into season 3? The farm? What? Oh, you know, every time you mention a farm, there's only a few ways that goes. It's either you're talking about Babe, Pig in the City, or you're talking about things that are always bad. There is never a good representation of a farm. If it's not wholesome, it skips all the way over to like Cthulhuan horror.
Riverdale's third season.
Oh, there was a
Season 3
third
of
season.
Riverdale, or as I like to call it, Archie Goes to Prison, is one of the most
Why? You know what? They might not even have explained. He might have just done it at this point.
bewildering, but I have to be honest here, wildly entertaining pieces of television I've ever seen.
What a several. Another childhood home burned down. This is just. He probably just clip arted this entire sentence and just kept reusing it because he had to use it so much. Oh dear God.
The early storylines focused on Archie going to beautiful boy jail after being framed for murder, where the evil warden
Seriously?
forces him to compete in an evil underground fight club. And this right here is the tamest storyline of the entire season. As
Underground Prison Fight Club was the tame one. Did someone just like binge watch The Great Escape or something, or what?
back in Riverdale, a new girl has started at Riverdale High. Evelyn Evernever, whose father is
Ever, never. That is such a comic name. Like, normally it's like, oh yeah, here's a show that's based on Archie. And this feels like, hey, here's a character we haven't got around to in Archie. We're just going to put him in here. It might be a character. It might not. I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, that is such a blatant, here's a name that definitely means something. You'll get in context, but not until then. Oh my God, I don't even. Like J. Jonah Jameson. It's that kind of name. Ever, never. It's that alliteration and how the word is set up. Oh my God. And it's Evelyn Ever Never. So it's 3 E consonants. Oh dear. I don't even. I'm not upset about it. I actually appreciate it. It's one of those kind of stupid tropes that I kind of enjoy at this point. I just don't know why still, and it bugs me.
is the leader of a grassroots religious movement known as the Farm. At first,
Called it. Also, considering how he went into the fake psychic videos, probably after this, I hope, maybe. I think I know where he's going with this one. Still probably killed less people than some of the real fake psychics.
it seems harmless, but then slowly the Farm begins
Cults
to
are not your
wrap
friends,
its
people.
tendrils around Riverdale High as more and more of its students begin dressing in white and subscribing to the Farm's bizarre lifestyle. And where this story hits a ludicrous peak comes with the mid-season musical episode. By the
Mid-season
way,
musical?
Riverdale has musical episodes, and
I paused on a very weird scene. I have no idea how to contextualize this, although he did mention wrestling earlier, so that's probably the shout out. But let's go back to the point of they just regularly have mid-season musicals. Well, we could definitely tell they were a fan of High School Musical, the TV series on Disney. Never seen it, but I'm assuming it's musical. If it's not, well, that's me eating crow.
I know that's not that unusual, but God, they're strange. When, after performing the musical version of The Heathers, a lone man in the crowd stands and begins an eerie, rhythmic clap. And Evelyn
He's all in white.
says this.
I knew my dad would like it.
We are introduced to the leader of the farm, Edgar Evernever. And as he claps,
Edgar Ever Never. Oh my, don't even, this is... of course they kept the alliteration going.
more and more of the townspeople
All in
begin
white.
to rise, all dressed in white, all clapping in
I
this
think I had a
eerie,
tangent, but it looked white in the
rhythmic
context.
unison.
Yeah.
It might be the Chaos Goblin in my brain, but I kind of love this moment. It's such an insane and fun way of revealing.
Fuck, man. My phone just went onto the Game Grumps. I have no idea what just happened. Fuck, I just got jump scared. So. What the fuck was that? It's completely not your fault, but Aaron and Danny, damn you. I don't know what the fuck you just did. We're getting into the cult scene. It's so dramatic. And I'm just like, hey, I'm grumpy. It's like, fuck you, right from behind. I just even did. Fuck, that actually scared me. I could feel my heart skip a beat there. It's like, fuck, man. Oh, I actually had a cold sweat for a second. Oh, what the hell? Oh, where were we? Oh, fuck. Okay, sorry about that.
Kind of love this moment. It's
Not
such
even
an
sure my
insane
mic
and
picked
fun
that up.
way of revealing how much of this town has been taken over by this creepy fucking cult.
I mean, on the one hand, yes, they're taking over. On the other hand, how are there that many people left alive after multiple serial killers who are apparently all related to one of the main cast? Well, so far, there's probably more.
And sure, it's schlocky and garbage, but this right here, this
Oh, and a
is
wink.
gourmet garbage. And do you feel that? Do you feel us rising out of the mediocre valley? And that's only going to continue as this storyline grows more and more ludicrous.
It gets weirder.
As more and more people begin to join the farm, including Betty's mom, only for Betty to uncover that
I mean, let's be completely fair here. Her mom joining a cult as opposed to all of her other family serial killers, it's probably the tame option.
Evelyn is actually 26 years old. I just want to point out that multiple actors playing high schoolers in Riverdale were actually in their late 20s when
They were only in the late 20s? Honestly, I assumed a few of them were probably in their 30s. I mean, it's a thing. Just think of what you get from TV. It's like, wow, this is what a high schooler looks like. And then you go to an actual picture of someone at that age and it's like, wow, you're a toddler. It is very different to the point where we've got so used to it that there's an actual cognitive dissonance between seeing a high schooler and seeing a high schooler on TV and thinking if one looks like the other, it's really creepy. But when you see them separately, you actually shut off the brain thinking, oh yeah, a grown, muscular 30-year-old man. He must be 14. It's a thing that happens. Try it yourself. The next time you see anything on this show and think they're supposed to be under the age of 18. They are not seniors as far as I know. Multiple seasons. So they have been the same age probably for multiple seasons. They're pulling a full Simpsons on here. Or maybe take a better one. Being an immortal 10-year-old Ash from Pokemon. Oh, jeez. It's actually kind of funny. They just... White boy's like, oh yeah, even though I actually look like I'm younger than you, I'm 26. The old 26.
this was shot, and that's really funny, is actually Edgar's wife and has gone through high school multiple times in order to recruit teenagers to the farm.
Multiple? But they were recruiting the families, not just the kids. Oh, they probably went through the kids. Admittedly, for cults, that's not even the weirdest thing they've pulled.
The farm now performing psychic surgery on its members to heal their emotional pain, but is actually, unbeknownst to its followers, secretly stealing their internal organs.
It's an organ farm. Of course they are.
As part of a massive organ harvesting ring, but also to keep Evelyn alive, whose organs are constantly failing. The season ending with the entire cult just rapture bombing out of existence.
Oh. They pulled a full... Okay, they pulled an Obi-Wan and just rapture bombed. Except for the guy in charge. I mean, they have some kind of closure there, so at least to give them that, but that is... Why?
That's everything that happens in Season 3 of Riverdale, the story of how a cult takes over the town.
And somehow succeeds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I seem to have misread my notes here. Did I say cult? I meant to say cults.
What?
See, while all this is happening, there is also a second cult simultaneously taking over the town, and the way this cult works... Hi, I just want to say that everything I'm about to say actually happens, and the show takes it very seriously, is through a haunted game of Dungeons and Dragons. Player manuals...
And now we see the episode apparently, or the episodes where they start watching Stranger Things.
For a mysterious new tabletop
Griffins
game
and Gargoyles?
called
I didn't know
Griffins
that name.
and Gargoyles begins to appear around.
See, this is obviously completely ridiculous, though. You can never get that many people to openly express interest in D&D because then you can get a game together. This is why it's an absolute fantasy. I made that joke last time and it still hurts.
The town, the people who play it becoming so addicted they are unable to tell reality from fiction, with the
I mean, at least I got that part pretty accurate to reality.
game's quests involving committing suicide through poison chalices and just straight up murder.
There's a joke in there about Tide Pods, but I think I'm a little over that one. Yeah.
With its most devout followers joining an evil gang called the Gargoyles, who look like this, sound like this,
Veronica Lodge hasn't paid what she owes.
and also worship an 11-foot tall monster who randomly teleports around town
Oh, that
and
was a
murders
figure.
people and is called the Gargoyle King. And the people of Riverdale are just like, okay, there's a Gargoyle King now.
I mean, let's be completely fair. With how many mass murderers and cults here, that is probably not even the most shocking thing. There's like, oh wow, I'm glad you have a hobby. It's a nice change of pace.
If there's no wedding reception, it means the Gargoyle King has won.
I'm aware of how fucking insane all this sounds, but some of the car crash moments this story leads to are just, they are just so good. After Betty and her mom are attacked by the Gargoyle King, Betty is committed to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy Home for Wayward Youth,
Oh yeah, he mentioned this one in the other one, wasn't it?
where the Gargoyle King and his followers won't be able to get at her.
Why?
But then Betty goes to art class and, oh no, everyone's painting pictures of the Gargoyle King! Archie escapes from beautiful boy prison and him and Jughead take shelter in a small town and, oh no, this is an evil Gargoyle King town!
I mean, I'm kind of surprised I went to a town different than Riverdale. That's surprising.
I'm not even going to try and make sense of how this all plays out. The Gargoyle King is literally revealed to be 4 different people at various points in the story, one of whom was also kind of the Black Hood. And this is all simultaneously happening alongside Archie in prison and the farm storyline. And it's madness with the peak.
Oh, these weren't all separate episodes. These were all in different episodes strung together? 1, keeping track of that. Impressive on the writer's end. 2, just stringing them along like that? These have to be massive episode dissonance. Like you're going from, oh, here's the one call. Okay, here's the other call. Okay, here's the serial killer plotline. Oh, here's the other serial killer who's actually the previous serial killer who we've already caught, but we haven't caught because he's a different serial killer. Oh, now he can teleport. Now he's a different person. I can see where he's going with this one. It is so incredibly bad that you can actually tell there's skill in making it this consistently bad. It's so over the top, but so well done in just its toned theming and how the image is portrayed that I can see what he's going with. It's so bad it becomes good. Unlike The Room, though, I think that was intentional at this point.
Of lunacy comes with how season 3 ends. For reasons that are
That wasn't the ending yet?
far too complicated for me to explain, Archie and his friends get trapped in an anime-style game of death where they must play poisoned chalice,
Anime?
Russian roulette, and fight mutant bear men. I think that's what's going on here. I just want to note that this is a separate encounter from the regular bear attack. And after all that,
There's multiple bear attacks? Also, considering he was a big buff guy with a bear hood, I think calling him a bear is, let's just put it this way. They've already mentioned everyone's thirsty for Archie, so it kind of is par for course at this point.
we get to the end of the episode and everything's worked out. The
Small bruise.
Gargoyle King is defeated, the farm have rapture bombed from existence, and this happens.
To the future.
Spring break, senior year. Oh, they actually do age. Slowly. And there's blood everywhere.
Archie, we have to burn all of our clothes, including Jughead's beanie. We'll wash off the blood in the swimming hole. After tonight, we never speak of this, ever.
I'm assuming
No
they killed
more.
Jughead.
This brings us to season 4 of Riverdale.
Or not.
And like a small child throwing tennis balls into a deep fog, Riverdale now begins hurling plot lines with no concept of where and when they might land.
They weren't already? Okay, so apparently season 3 was the thought out one. This is literally just the idea of, hey, we're just going to write every episode we can, and then we're just going to string them along. They have to have either an entire booklet of things, or just like, okay, how can we create more plot holes? I have so many questions, and I paused on a really creepy image.
And the rate at which these new plot lines materialize and vaporize becomes so frantic and insane. And to show you this, here is everything that happens in season 4 of Riverdale.
What?
Veronica starts a sexy car wash, and after spending the entirety of season 3 trying to get her father sent to jail, she comes home only to find him waiting for her. And when she's like, "Daddy, how did you escape from jail?" He's like,
Mija, I own that jail.
fucking brilliant.
You know that joke earlier about him going full Epstein? Considering that actually happened in real life, I don't think it's a joke anymore.
Archie opens his own community center / boxing gym and later becomes a masked vigilante. This is the second time in Riverdale this has happened, and begins attacking local drug operations by himself with a baseball bat.
I'm pretty sure there's a movie about that one, but I can't seem to put my finger on something super. Whatever. Also, really, the drug operations, let's be completely fair here. Those are the least offenders here. There are so many other people who deserved it. Oh, boy.
Jughead enlists in a spooky prep school with a history of disappearing students where
So a normal prep school? Got it.
him and his roommate are murder bullied. Tony, Cheryl's
Murder
girlfriend,
bullied?
discovers Cheryl has actually been keeping the body of her dead brother Jason, who, I remind you, died in season 1, in her basement and talks to it like he's still alive. And then Jason's body is never used in another plotline ever again.
Do they just have a dummy corpse ready to go? Okay, here's the really creepy question. Did they have someone model for the dummy corpse? Did they actually have someone acting as a dummy corpse the entire time? Or did they just randomly make a dummy corpse like, okay, well, here's the uncredited character. Have fun, guys. It happens
Random
again. Of course it
Riverdale
happens.
citizens begin to receive spooky VHS tapes. Betty's sister shows up at school with a bomb strapped to her, which Betty must disarm despite a FBI agent standing right beside her, before Betty is then kidnapped by the farm, who never actually rapture bombed despite the clothes being right there, meaning they all just ran outside naked, I guess, and Betty finds
That's probably the least crazy thing that could have happened, actually, so let's not go with that. They have, we are at the point of there are so many things going on right now that I have literally no idea how to comprehend it. I've been told there's, 5 or 6 seasons? So this isn't even the last one. I have no idea if the show is still going on either. For all I know, it could still be getting weirder. And at this point, it's not like I'm liking it. It's a CW show, so that's kind of a given for most of their stuff. But at the same time, I can kind of respect it for being your 30 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on how long it is, break from reality, where you can just pretend it's like, see, this is what LSD feels like. Because that's very much what this show feels. Oh, I think I just figured out how they're writing it. Oh, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense now.
Finds herself imprisoned in, I think, Mexico, in the farm's complex with her mother.
Oh yeah,
was
because they always put the
actually
tone on
just
for Mexico.
pretending to be a member of the farm for a news story.
I mean, on top of the other cult she was in and the other shit going on and the multiple murderers in your family, and yeah, this is not even that weird.
Despite getting a tattoo of the farm, selling her home for the farm, and marrying the farm's leader, Betty and her mother
I mean, admittedly, it is still technically an upside. He only harvested organs as compared to just wasting them like her previous husband. Ugh.
escaping and freeing everyone before chasing Edgar Evernever to the roof of their secret cult complex, where he has built his own rocket ship
and
he is going to use.
And also had the time to get into an Evil Knievel outfit. They jump the shark with the death scene at the beginning or the end of season 1, and they decide, what if there was more sharks? Bigger sharks with freaking lasers on their freaking heads, and it's somehow working?
To fly away from the FBI, and I'm just okay.
He actually paused to put himself on.
I'm sorry, it's just, look at this image. Look at how he's dressed. His little belt buckle says Edgar. This is the moment I became convinced I was not laughing at Riverdale, but with it.
Wait, this is the moment he realized that? Was this so much earlier in the show than I expected? Because I was kind of figuring that's exactly how they were doing. They gave up, and yet somehow giving up made it work for them. Admittedly, when they were trying, it was really bad, so they made the right choice.
I mean, look at this. Look at this image. Are you honestly telling me that a human being with a brain and a soul wrote this moment and was not aware of what they were doing?
I'm going to agree with him only out of self-preservation, that I don't want to consider the opposite as being an option because it's just too depressing. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Please, no one correct me that there was some kind of press release or an interview where they said, we actually fully planned this out and it was super serious. And then this happened. I know someone's going to say in the comment, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see it. It's just, oh, no. Not that after the first season, I might actually believe it too.
I mean, look at it. There are people who legitimately think Riverdale season 1 is good and everything after that is bad, and
I'm sorry. There's people who think that, wow, it's all right that your family was ruined. Ha ha ha. Was a good show. Like this is over the top and stupid and crazy, and it's literally just a break from reality so flagrant that you can't take it seriously, to the point where it becomes like eating cotton candy. There's nothing there, but it's sweet and it feels really cool. But then that first season is the exact opposite. It's like, hey, we're going to punch you in the face with your own dick by surgically removing it and somehow making sure you can still feel it as we hit you with your own dick. It's going to be excruciating. Why are you doing this to yourself? You really shouldn't. Oh my, I could have believed anything he said, but people enjoy that first season. That is a step too far for me to willingly comprehend that. So I'm going to choose not to and forget everything I just said, because it is, no, just no.
And I'm sorry, but if you genuinely believe that little Archie Andrews getting stage fright while playing his guitar is more entertaining than the leader of an organ harvesting cult building his own space rocket to escape the FBI while dressed like this,
full Evil Knievel,
then you are not fun at parties, and I don't want to hang out with you.
Okay, 1, I am also not fun at parties, and 2, Honestly, the idea of hanging out with anyone is kind of terrifying to me, which is why I'm not fun at parties. But even I am not that bad, so let's give the people who aren't fun at parties some credit. We have standards, thank you.
That is everything that happens during Riverdale Season 4.
That's only the fourth season.
I'm sorry. I seem to have misread my notes again.
Don't say episode.
Did I say Season 4?
Don't say episode.
I meant to say Season 4, Episode 3! Everything I just described,
3 episodes!
This all takes place in a single 42-minute episode!
They're only 42 minutes? Oh yeah, because they put 18 minutes of ads in.
That is how fucking bananas this show now is, and unfortunately, it's here where the party kind of ends.
What?
I do feel bad criticizing Season 4 as the show was hit by 2 major incidents that were out of its control.
Oh,
the
who
first
died?
was COVID, and the second was the tragic passing of Luke Perry, who played Fred Andrews, which had to have been a real blow to the cast and crew. He was great in this show, and the tribute episode to him is really touching.
They probably regret not letting him die at the end of the first season then, because it would have been a really touching send-off. I mean, a tribute in the episode is nice, but it seems like it also, based on everything Super Eyepatch Wolf did or said so far, hit every actor in the morale really damn hard.
And there are fun moments in Season 4. The gang start to receive these creepy videotapes of people dressed as the comic book versions of themselves and murdering people. Cheryl is haunted by an evil doll before seemingly attempting to commit suicide by gassing herself, only for it to be a ploy to smoke out her evil mother who has been living inside her walls. And remember that bit where the school teacher...
So just keeping people in random parts of the house where no one else can find them was a family thing for them. Okay. I have to ask, how is it that this is the less crazy stuff where the party ends? Because so far it seems like it's even crazier than before.
Jumped out the window? Well, it sure would be silly if that happened a second time. But
why do you keep going to class
Season
above the first
4
floor?
is also where Riverdale's writing sins really start to catch up with it.
No one knows what's
Even
going
by
on.
Riverdale standards, there's some plot lines that are just so sparse and bizarre, like Kevin joining an underground tickle fighting ring, which I would bet money was the result of one of the writers watching the documentary.
No. Oh, I'll give them this one. I'll give them this one, the underground tickle fighting ring. I said earlier that plot line with it's a disease that only affects women and makes them have seizures where they're shaking on the ground. If that wasn't someone's fetish, we know it's someone's fetish now. And considering how they treat Archie, we know everyone in this show who's writing it is thirsty. So I guess this was considered the big gulp of water episode.
Documentary Tickled, but the real problem comes...
Wait, the fuck? Tickled. Yeah, no, let's look at this and tell me for a second you don't believe this is exactly what you think it is. No, this was a giant excuse. We know exactly where this is going.
But the real problem comes from the central mystery. Remember that
There was a central
beautiful, insane moment at the end of Season 3 that I personally think makes it look like the gang ate Jughead? Well, we spend the vast majority of Season 4 working our way back to this point, constantly getting these little flash forwards like...
In other words, because they actually had something set up in advance for once, they couldn't actually tie it off because their entire writing style at this point had devolved into, let's see what works and plan ahead later. But the one time they tried to plan ahead, it didn't work because they didn't actually plan ahead. They set something up and they probably dropped it all together. And when they finally did something, it was probably unsatisfying because they didn't actually plan it out. Yeah, that makes sense. In other words, they tried to go normie by actually knowing what they're doing in advance, and that's what failed. Kind of surprising.
Archie, Veronica, and Betty getting arrested, or Jughead's dead body in a morgue. He's definitely dead, right? Right?
Doubt
But
it.
when the eventual mystery is revealed, it's just that one of these spooky prep kids bonked him on the head and tried to pretend that Betty did it. And so it's like, hey, you know the bad guys of this season? Well, turns out they were the villains all along. And besides, this explanation carries several inconsistencies. For example, how would the gang be covered with this amount of blood from such a shallow head wound? And
Actually, no, head wounds bleed quite a bit depending on where they're at. Although the one on the back of the head probably makes more sense. Yeah, actually, that kind of makes sense. That amount of blood, depending on how long it goes and if it's not covered up, that's not unusual. Getting it on them from the back of someone's head, unless they're all literally trying to get into his head themselves, and considering it's coming from their necks, it actually means it's coming down from their backs of the heads as well. That's actually even weirder than I think about.
how did that blood get under their clothes? Actually, no, I'm not doing this again. Trust me, I really don't think they knew what they were doing when
They did the same thing as the
wrote
first
this
season.
scene, and the majority of season 4 just feels like the writers trying to explain their way back to it.
Admittedly, they should have probably just given up and taken an episode at the very end just to run with it, because at that point, they're Doctor Whoing it. Which admittedly sometimes works. Sometimes. The writers are all over the place in that show, and every now and again they might actually have a coherent plot line that leads into future things. But a lot of the times it's just, here's what we're doing today. And it kind of works that way because it's episodic. But this is faster than episodic, so it doesn't even work that way.
And it is some of the most frustrating television I have ever watched. Jughead turns out to be still alive. He was just hiding, and those mysterious murder videotapes, well, those were just Jughead's little sister being a scamp. After the ludicrous
Really?
heights of season 3,
So they decided they went too far in season 3 and they toned it down. It's like, oh, we're not actually murdering people now, unlike all the other times. That actually, yeah, I can see why that would be frustrating.
this feels like a massive step down.
Cop
A
out.
season where you can start to feel the show sliding back into mediocrity. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this kind of trash entertainment really doesn't have any value. Maybe I shouldn't have made this video.
What comes in the next season?
Man. Bummer. And then season 5 happens, and there's honest to God fucking aliens, and Archie fights in a war, and there's subterranean mole people, and Cheryl starts a cult around Jason's dead body, and Betty's in the FBI now.
Admittedly, the cult around the dead body is literally not even the weirdest thing they could have possibly said at this point.
Hunting
Mole people
2
actually
new
do
serial killers, an evil man lives in the sewers called the Rat King, there's ghosts, an evil maple syrup mothman, and be gone from my temple, or I will smite thee. For I am Cheryl Blossom, queen of the bees. Why? That's the only question left.
She actually says she's the queen of the bees. Yeah, no, I'm going with them on this one. They tried to tone it down, realized they're not good at toning it down, and toned it up again.
Right? Why am I spending 44 minutes talking about this stupid
Because it
fucking
keeps going
show?
every which way, not sure which is
The
good or bad.
answer is pretty simple. It's because I like it.
Yeah,
I really like Riverdale.
except for the first season, because admittedly, with all the other shit they've said, I don't feel nearly the visceral hatred for anything here as I did for that first season. That was painful. It's trash, but it's fun trash, and I can get that.
And I know a lot of people don't.
Still like
they're
that
not
mic.
wrong. There is a lot to criticize with this show, but for me, the value of a piece of media isn't dictated by what it does badly.
It's
by
what you
it does
enjoy.
well. And with Riverdale, sometimes I don't need a deep dive into the human condition or to be confronted with the existentialism of my own mortality. Sometimes I just need to sit on my couch with my partner, eat bad takeout, and laugh and howl as life's ills fall away in the blazing spectacle of a show that has completely lost its mind. There's
And admittedly, yeah, that makes sense. That's escapism, pure and simple. It makes perfect sense. Hell, there's an entire genre of anime which is just off-the-wall insanity, like Sergeant Frog, for example, that is this kind of storytelling, except usually they separate out individual episodes, where this one is just, hey, we're going to do a bunch of things this season and we'll just fit them in when we can.
There's a chaotic beauty to bad media.
Which does actually
Rather
make
than
it better, I
something
think.
succeed in mediocrity, I'd prefer to see it fail spectacularly. And that's what I think Riverdale does.
So So overall, I kind of think I want to watch this. I mean, I probably won't because it involves getting onto TV, and I barely ever pay attention to that. But maybe if I find a season for somewhere, it's not the first one, in like a store, and I might pick it up if it's on sale, because it sounds like the kind of thing where it's fun. It looks like it's just a great way to waste time, to relax, because it's so over the top, so insane, so ridiculous that you can't take it seriously. And you can just zone out and just relax for a good hour. I guess more like 40 minutes when you get rid of the commercials. And that sounds like a really good ride. Not sure if it would make as much sense binging it because you'd have to turn off your brain for that long, but it sounds like he did a really good job showing of just what kind of bullshit this is. And I kind of want to get into it more. Hell, I wish he had talked more about what the 5th season insanity was, but at that point, he had made his point that the show was bad, demonstrably bad, when it tried to take itself seriously, when it tried to work for something. But when it just let everything go wild and threw everything at the wall and was as insane and manic and absolutely off its meds as we know every single person in that writing room could possibly get, it was good. And it does kind of prove that jumping the shark, even though the trope is when you jump the shark, you've gone too far and you've lost everything. This is a show that only was good when it jumped the shark, because every time it stayed away from going too far, it fell apart. And I like how that's actually very different than most of the writing concepts, most of the drama, TV, movies, everything when it comes to writing. You're supposed to, at least in a lot of media, have that tone of this is what's real. And the joke shows are the ones that can play around with things that are out of the way. But even then, it's down to earth, sometimes because of budget constraints. This, though, is like, hey, we're going to do everything weird we can. And it was glorious, is what it sounds like. And I kind of want this. Yeah, if anyone knows where I can get it, let me know. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. Super Eyepatch Wolf did a great job. And if you haven't already, check it out. More importantly, you just watched the entire reaction on multiple parts to his video with someone geeking out over it, and you haven't watched his original. Just go watch it again if you haven't. I realized what I said. I guess I just implied you should watch it twice. I stand by that sentence. I definitely intended, yeah. Basically, I'm probably going to go check out this show and a lot of trailers. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. Adios.